going to do a quick video here of an intersection in Denver, 29th and Quebec Street. This is Pedestrian Dignity, Jonathan Stalls. So, newly painted, well done, crosswalks, but look how fast that goes down. So again, older adults, the timer on this thing, not great. But here's what I want to point out. So what we have, give you some context. This is the east side of the northeast Park Hill neighborhood, and this is almost like a wall barrier more than it is it's obviously a state highway. It's a big arterial street, big arterial corridor, lots of commercial use. But you notice this main street, right? This is like welcome all, care, respect, welcome all, Stapleton, 29th Avenue Town Center. So there are lots of things in there that people use and go to. There's a grocery store just straight that way behind the telephone pole there. There's a bank. There's tons of parks and open space. We've got lots of practical trips. But I want you to notice this side of the street. So this is a mostly, when we look, especially going north here, this is a mostly Black African-American community, mixed Hispanic Latino, mixed income. And then you've got a much more affluent, mostly white population on the other side of the street. That's just how it is. Look at the numbers, look at the statistics. This is systemic stuff. This is a system of separating a certain people group from a certain people group, okay? There's lots of informal and formal redlining all throughout this neighborhood, hence the Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, which is the light just north there. When Martin Luther King Jr. visited this neighborhood in a way to make it clear of the segregation and the injustice happening in this community. And hence the name Stapleton. So the name Stapleton, this is the name of the old airport. So geographically, there were people that were just defaulting to that name for this community. In recent years, local community members started to challenge and push the city and the neighborhood to change the name, because Stapleton represents an old mayor of Denver, Benjamin Stapleton, who was a predominant leader in the KKK and the Ku Klux Klan, and everything that means and stands for. So you've got this entire community on the backs of this toxic name, toxic affiliation, and you have this next to nothing sidewalk. It's not a sidewalk, it's a rollover curb. It's a popular transit corridor. You see the bus stop, which is just right there. No covering, no bench. And you have no clean, straightaway access point to this main street. So the developer designed that main street to run right into a house. Whereas 29th Street in northeast Park Hill runs right here. So you've got this next to nothing sidewalk pushing people into high-speed traffic, fast-turning buses. Buses turn right here. This is the 28 bus going east to west. Picks up, there's a little bus stop right there. Nothing for pedestrians. But on the Stapleton side, we've got a bus shelter. We've got a bench. Wherever you are in your politics, in your attitude, from the context of a pedestrian, speaking as me, I'm a resident of North Park Hill, but from the context of a pedestrian, let's just leave all the other jargon aside. It is clear that there is a certain level of care and investment, budget, time, energy going into the experience for pedestrians on that side of the street versus on this side of the street. There are two sides of the street, and it is clear, doesn't matter if you know what went on in the planning meetings, doesn't matter. This is how it's experienced. Most people who depend on moving this way are going to go off of their experience, not off of closed door meetings and opinions and people who are disconnected from actually walking this. So you look at these ramps, they point directly into traffic. On the other side, you've got directional facing ramps. Now, granted, there is a campaign and there is movement and there is a committee, and I haven't seen much recently, but there are groups of people working on improving Quebec. So it's not like there's nothing happening, but I'm pointing this out from 10 plus years ago when this was developed. And I'm pointing out how this stuff matters. It impacts connection, attitude, belonging, being seen, being prioritized. It points so specifically to racism, to classism, to things that feed separation of a quote-unquote certain kind of people. There's an attitude, often, not everyone, but often inside of Stapleton, where it's, we don't want those people coming through here, hence campaigns that are pushing and moving to get bus routes going more through Stapleton. So this feeds it, this approves it, this solidifies it, this kind of development right here. Where the main street just dead ends into the house. You got next to nothing for a sidewalk, and amenities are so much more accessible, thoughtful, intentional on one side than they are on the other. It's important to feel it, to see it. I walk these streets almost every day. I feel it in my body every time, every single time, coming from North Park Hill into this side of Quebec Street. So solutions being, be in relationship with all of those who will use whatever you are building. Do the work to walk the streets, feel it, before you even begin putting pencil to paper. That this has to be embodied relational work, not just expert master degrees behind walls with maps and pens by people who do not have any idea what it's like to live in these neighborhoods, nor understand the demographics, nor understand the history and the context, on top of just functional neighborhood to neighborhood connecting. The recent decision to change the name was voted down. The majority of the votes were given to property owners, developers who own the apartments. Homeowners, renters didn't have a vote. Business occupants didn't have a vote. It was the owners of a lot of the condos and apartment buildings. It was owners within, any business building, like any tenant ownership had votes, but nobody who rented space, who occupied various spaces inside of these apartments or public housing. None of those people had votes. And so recently it was voted down to not change the name. So it's an important thing to just, as something that is consistent to how this specific intersection and a lot of Stapleton is developed, it's important to lean in and tie and consider and move with how these are all connected. Peace. Okay, pedestrian dignity, human dignity, people first, prioritize us, build for us, design for us, budget for us being pedestrians, people by foot, people by wheelchair, people who do not have a choice but to move at an unhurried 1 to 2 to 3 mile per hour way. Peace.